And then, a few years later, in March of 1956, flew into the hole in the South Pole 2,400 miles before he had to turn back. After returning from his Antarctic expedition on March 13th of 1956, Byrd remarked, "The present expedition has opened up a vast new land. The word land is very significant. He could not have referred to any part of the Antarctic continent, since none of it consists of land and all of it is ice. And besides, its geography is fairly well known, and Byrd did not make any noteworthy contribution to the Antarctic geography as other explorers did. If Byrd discovered a vast new area in the Antarctic, he would have claimed it for the United States government, and it would be named after him, just as would be the case of his 1,700-mile flight beyond the North Pole. But we find no such achievements to the credit of the great explorer, nor did he leave his name in the Arctic and Antarctic geography to the extent that his statements about discovering a vast new land and area would indicate. In the year before his death, Byrd called this land beyond the South Pole, that enchanted continent in the sky, land of everlasting mystery. He could not have used this statement if he referred to the part of the icy continent of Antarctica that lies on the other side of the South Pole." Let's see here. And while I'm reading this, what you're seeing is basically a computer rendition of how the Earth actually expanded. And you have to remember how this is very important, because even to this day, the Earth is still expanding, and the continents are still moving apart, and the oceans are getting bigger. Let's see. A lot of Admiral Byrd's testimony was talked about in the middle 50s, yet in the 60s and 70s it started to become suppressed to where it was almost very hard to find. As a matter of fact, this book that I'm reading from, The Hollow Earth by Raymond Bernard, was hard to find at one time, but it's starting to become easier to, it's been republished and it's a lot easier to find now. And I actually thank Darcy Kuntz, who's been a guest on this show before and a guest on Corey's show, for acquiring this very fine hardcover copy of a book that I had and just photocopied. This book actually has 3 smaller books combined together, including a very, very interesting book by, let's see, what's his name here, Gardner. A lot of different facts in here about the Eskimos and how about their belief and their history of where they come from and the lands from beyond the pole. A lot of stuff that I never thought about before, like let's take for example icebergs. Everybody knows of icebergs. They've seen icebergs, you know. Most people have seen the movie Titanic, and of course, you know, the Titanic hit an iceberg. And there are icebergs that very plentiful in the Arctic region there in the north. However, what most people don't realize is that icebergs are composed of fresh water. Huge, huge chunks of ice, all fresh water, floating in the ocean that is dominated by salt water. So where does this fresh water come from? Water enough to create these icebergs. It's a mystery to most scientists. However, the people who believe that the Earth is hollow, they'll tell you, you know, a lot of the fresh water flows out to these openings in the north and in the south, creating these huge, tremendous ice sheets and allowing them to form these massive bergs. We talked about earlier in the shows the mammoths that are found encased in these ice. And you have to remember, the mammoth was a tropical animal needing hundreds of pounds of vegetation in order to sustain itself. There is no way the mammoth could exist in icy terrain because there couldn't be any food for it to eat. However, for some strange reason, scientists think, oh, well, the mammoth had wool on it, so it must have lived in the icy terrains. No, that's just not how it worked. And if we could go on with the clips here, we'll show artist renditions of how the Earth is hollowed out, and not only that, but pictures of other planets from our solar system and what appear, thermal images and what appear to be also openings at the south and north of a lot of the planets here in our solar system. Let's see here. I want to thank Duncan, actually, for finding me a lot of these pictures, and so that way I could show you here. Okay, here's some very, very interesting questions about, actually, can we freeze this one real quick here? This picture, as far as giving you detail about the Earth, is not the greatest, obviously, but what is interesting are the words. Actually, can we go back to the previous one? Yeah, this one right here. As you can see, if you're just reading it, how it says the South Pole entrance to Rainbow City. Rainbow City is one of the most talked about cities in the Hollow Earth, and it's actually the city where the Nazis established a base near Rainbow City in order to attempt a takeover, a hostile takeover of Rainbow City. This diagram actually lists a lot of the openings that are on the surface that have been discovered. From this book here, there's a lot of questions and mysteries that can only be answered or explained if the Earth is hollow. And basically, some of them are, why is the Earth flattened at the poles? Why is it that the poles have never been reached? Why is the sun invisible so long in the winter near the furthest parts north or south? What causes the aurora borealis? What are icebergs? How are they formed? And what produces many tidal waves in the Arctic? Why do meteors fall more frequently near the poles? What causes the great ice pressure in the Arctic Ocean? And why is there colored snow in the Arctic region? Why is ice in the Arctic Ocean frequently filled with rock, gravel, sand? And why do compasses refuse to work near the poles? Taking these one by one, the Earth is flattened at the poles. As the Earth is hollow, it cannot be round. The answer is the opening to the interior would detract from its roundness in proportion to the size of the opening. And what you will see here in the next few pictures that we'll start to show is when we start to look at other planets in our solar system, that they appear to be round. However, when you look at them from thermal imaging, what you'll see is they're actually flattened at the poles. And because it's not just the Earth that is hollow, but it is all round planets. And in the next couple of weeks, when we talk about gravity, we will see that it's the natural process of gravity that actually flattens them out. Now what you're looking at here is an ancient map depicting an opening in Antarctica into the hollow Earth. And this was back before, actually, Antarctica was covered in ice. And the reason I can say that Antarctica was not, there was a time when Antarctica wasn't covered in ice, because when the Earth was smaller, all the land was a lot closer to the equator, and we didn't have ice on the poles. It's not until the Earth started expanding out then these portions of the Earth got so much further away from the equator that it became cold enough for ice to form there. Let's see here. What produces the aurora borealis? It's a reflection of a fire within the interior of the Earth, the inner sun, that causes the light of the aurora borealis.